All right. What am I looking for over here? It should be right here. And I don't have it right there. I just had this. Oh, this is how I want to start it off. All right. But I don't have them. Where are they at? They're usually right here. Hello, everyone.
Rob, we're live. Hello. He's like talking to himself.
Well, I'm talking to you. Last second, I had this idea of a good way to open up today, but I need the sticks and I can't find this. Usually they're right here. They're usually in just in the distance of where I'm at. Like they're always around, and it's like, where did I put them? Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Native Wellness Institute Power Hour, and we are excited, so excited to welcome two guests in celebration of Indigenous Peoples Week. And, you know, more than a week, let's call it a month, let's call it a year, let's call it a lifetime, right? Celebrating Indigenous Peoples. We have with us today some two really special people. When I say special people, they're special to us, but they're also special to their communities, to their people and where they live. And they're from the future. they're from Friday morning. It's actually Friday morning, 6 a.m. where they're at, and they're in Australia. We'd like to welcome Doreen Lovett and Joe Day, our brothers and sisters from down under. Welcome, you two.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. And you also have with us today Lavina Louie. And Lavina, we're happy to have that you're on today. Lavina actually spent a year living in Australia when she was in high school. She was an exchange student over there. So how you doing, Lavina?
I'm awesome, Rob. So I want to say hi to all my Australian friends. I'll take you guys. Yeah, they were definitely, I lived in Strathalbyn, South Australia, which is a little bit away from Doreen and Joe, who live near Melbourne and up in Yorta country. But it's kind of the same. I mean, I got to go over to Melbourne when I lived there. So welcome, you guys. We're so excited to have you on. And I hope that, you know, everybody's going to enjoy this presentation today of our Australian Aboriginal brothers and sisters. Liam Lambs. Woohoo!
Hey. All right.
Thank you.
As we get started, first thing I'd like for us to do, and each of us can do it our own way, is over here, we would call it land acknowledgement. I think over there, you'd call it a welcome to country.
Yeah.
But I'll start off. Today, I am in the O'odham territory here in Mesa, Arizona. Is traditionally occupied by the O'odham people, who are descendants of the Hohokam. And I want to thank all the O'odham people for their accomplishments, for their technology and industrious ways, so that we can be here today and be on this land that is formerly theirs and ancestrally theirs. So that's where I come from today.
Yeah, very.
Okay, I'll go next. So I am on the Coeur d'Alene Indian Reservation in Plummer, Idaho. So I'm just going to step outside of my car so everybody can kind of see where I'm at. I am at our wellness center. So our tribe has a wellness center. So that's our beautiful wellness center. You guys can see that. We have a gym, a swimming pool, a workout room. We have all kinds of health and wellness at our Coeur d'Alene Wellness Center. We also have we're building a brand new youth and family rec center in Worley, Idaho. And it's going to have a swimming pool that has slides. It's going to have a boys and girls club where it's going to have football fields, baseball fields. It's just, or you guys might not know, well, cricket. So it'd be like cricket and netball. But we're going to have a whole new facility for our young people here on the Coeur d'Alene Reservation. And so I just feel blessed to have, to be here at home on the Sistichurumsh is how we say it, is Sistichuam is the name of our tribe in our language. And so Limlam Shinchaspaus Talichas, thank you from my heart for being with us today, all of you who are out there in Zoom land.
Hey. Well, first thing, I just really privileged to be in great company this morning. And but the thing that I'd just like to do, I just want to give an acknowledgement, similar to Robin. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge our elders, both past and present, not just only here on Yorta Yorta country, but particularly wherever Indigenous people are, and particularly in the States, and but acknowledging elders, both past and present, those, and also to acknowledge all the emerging leaders, and those teachers and those ones that are, contributing to the wellness of our communities, and and just pleased to be here this morning and with you, and that's.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that, I'm Doreen Lovett. Thank you for having me. I'd like to acknowledge the country that I was born and raised on, and that's the Wurundjeri country. It's in Melbourne, Victoria. So I'm a city girl. So I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, pay my respects to elders, past and present, and to all elders, to your country too.
Very good.
Oh, great. That was cool. That was awesome. So what we're going to do is just have some conversation going about the word in a way, Indigenous, but what does that mean to each of our own people? And at the same time, those of you that are watching, please feel free to comment some questions, just putting down in the comments if you have any questions for our guests today as we talk about this. So one of the first things so that people have an understanding, what is it that you do for your communities? I mean, you're working in Indigenous communities in Australia. What is that like? And what do you do as far as helping and ensuring those future generations? So just tell us a little bit about that.
Me, Joe, or you first? I'll go first.
Ladies first.
Okay, then. I'd like to, I believe that I walk in the footsteps of my elders. I have a very strong senior elder in my family, which is my Auntie Georgina Lovett Williams. And they're at retiring age now, whether they want to or not. It's just time's getting on for them and their memory. So through this lockdown, I've acknowledged that how much they need us at this stage, and doing a handover. My auntie has been very proactive for over 50 years in the Aboriginal community in Melbourne, working in justice and Aboriginal orgs, whether it was housing or the Aborigine Advancement League. Currently, she's managed our Waroona Cemetery, and I've just been handed over that because she has to take a step back now. So we're in the process of doing the handover. And even though it's a cemetery, but it means so much to us because that is, Waroona means resting place. And I'm looking after our resting place now. And it's an honour. It's an honour to work for our people. And I love it. I love helping my people. Yeah.
Thank you, Doreen. Joe?
I in our community, as community workers, we wear a lot of hats, eh?
Yeah,
So
a lot of hats.
wear a lot of hats, and so it really benefit working in Indigenous communities. And there's, I love the fact that part of your, I suppose, your duties or work roles is as directed by the CEO. And so I was very fortunate to have a really good CEO that allowed me to not only get a lot of training in a lot of things, and so you get to do a lot of roles, and a lot of organisations change. So I've been a justice worker, been the A&D worker and counsellor and housing worker, youth worker. But it's all good stuff. It's all yeah. It's really a labour of love working for community. And when we work for community, it's a great privilege. And at the moment, what I'm doing, as I get younger, roles changed. So at the moment, I do pastoral care, and it's pastoral care is a position. It's not a religious position, but it allows me to counsel in grief and loss. There's a whole range of things that allow me to do, but also still be involved in the Koori court. So we sit on the county court, the magistrates court, a children's court. So we haven't court at the moment like we're doing now. So we just started to do Zoom court. So we've got a council, so to speak, respected elders and persons, or respected persons and elders. And the elders, they're all keyed up. They're trained up. Zoom. So it's good. Whereas before, they pretty hard to travel because now they're just getting on Zoom and for the time being. So, but that's what I'm doing, and at the moment, a lot of hats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just a privilege to work for our community and just being out and about. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. One of the things I think as that I witness for myself is just certain things. And I think people that are watching that are from here, from the States, will find some of these things a little bit surprising, such as, say, for example, at the gathering that we went to, the Three Rivers Festival, they brought out the medicines and did a smoke ceremony.
Yeah.
And brushed everyone off with using eagle feathers, things like that, where, you look at our cultures, how similar they are in a lot of ways. But I have a question for Lavina, living there and working, and also opportunities to work out there too, Lavina, just from your standpoint, what are some of the similar things that you see between, say, the Indigenous people here on Turtle Island and the Indigenous people there in Australia? And what are some of the similarities, and also what are some of the differences?
Well, I think for me, like the very first time, all of the exchange students, when we were in Strathalbyn, we drove from Strathalbyn up to Ayers Rock, and Ayers Rock is a very sacred rock for the Aboriginal people. And when I was over there, we actually a group of elder women came out and showed us how to gather their foods. And what they did was they had us look for this little ant, and he had a yellow stripe on his butt. And so all these exchange students were in the outback, and we're looking for this little ant, and then we found the ant, and then the ladies came over and they dug, and they just started digging a circle, and there were honey ants. So the ants had these little honey pockets on them, and we got to eat them. And this one exchange student who didn't speak very good English, she was like, okay, take a picture, I'm gonna do it. And then she like popped the whole ant and honey bag in her mouth and ate it. So it was so amazing, that the way that they dug their food and they followed the ant, and how they had a connection to the animals, and they talked about that. And then we finished and we got onto the bus, and these Aboriginal women, they said, we are now going to sing a song to the Seven Sisters. And they started to sing, and I started crying because it brought me home. when they started singing, like, because we have in Nispelum, we have the longhouse and we have the 7 drum. And the 7 drum, you know, all of our men stand up and they sing and they give thanks and they, you know, like for that split moment, I felt like I was home and I felt connected to them. And it was really like amazing how that whole time I was in Australia, like I never once felt prejudiced against me for being Indian, for being Native American. Like I never felt that. But one time I was with some of my Rotarian families and we were at the Murray River and they were all talking about the Aboriginals who were drinking or would be drunk on or around the bars. And as soon as they started talking about drinking and Aboriginals, I immediately got angry. And I felt like they were talking about me and my people.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I totally connected to what was happening. And I got really upset. And I said, you know, like, but I was only like 16, so I didn't understand historical trauma. So I couldn't like speak, defend the Aboriginal people the way that I wanted to. And I just had to sit there and take that they were talking about the Aboriginals in the same way that white people in America talked about my people. And
Yeah.
I connected to it in such a way that was just, you know, I was just like, I understand the pain. And so, you know, to me, that was a lot of the similarities. Like I felt like one of the Aboriginals, even though I was Native American or, you know, what tribe I was. But yeah, so it was just, you know, I think that was one of the things. And then another thing was like all the Australians, because where I went to school was all white people, but all the Australians, like they thought we lived in teepees. And you know, they thought we scalp people. Like my first day of school, you know, I'm in a school uniform and I'm in shoes and everything, and they're like, do you guys still scalp people? As they're like walking away from me, right? So, you know, like they thought we lived in teepees, and I was like, no, we have microwaves and we have bathrooms, and you know, but the world only sees Native Americans as what media shows them, which is cowboys and Indians, and that's all they knew, and that's all a lot of even Americans in our own country. We have people who still think we live in teepees, and so. You know, like that was kind of what I went through, you know, just being there as an exchange student. And then, you know, like Rob said, Rob, you have great stories of your people and how the songs connected to your tribe, and like the woo, you know, like the war hoops, like we all got war hoops, whether we're Aboriginal or we're Indigenous, we all do the war hoop.
Yeah, that is true. One of the things that I connected to was listening to the stories of what is called the Stolen Generations. Doreen and Joe, you want to share a little bit about that, the Stolen Generations?
Doors?
Yeah, well, if anyone's ever heard of Archie Roach, Took the Children Away is one of the songs that he sung. He wrote it. It's about his life. And when the government came on to Framlingham Mission and took the children, and Archie Roach was one of them. And he's such a beautiful man, Archie. He found his way back to his people. He was raised by, I think they were Scottish, and they were very good, you know, and he loves them, and they were very good to him. And when he found his way back to his people, and that was in Fitzroy. I don't know, did you go to Fitzroy when you came over, Robert?
Yeah.
Into the heart of our community here in Melbourne. And he sings about it, about taking the children away. And to this day, government still says that it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and yet you've got Archie, plenty of others that have very similar stories. And one of my sister girls, Victoria Sumner from South Australia, and she's for Nunanjerry, South Australia. And for example, 75 foster homes that she was raised in, and it's still happening. There's another stolen generation still happening because government isn't seeing what we see, about joining the dots together, keeping family together, working through the issues, and to keep a roof over their heads. It's just happening all over again. In fact, I think we got more in care than we did with the first stolen generation. So it's a big job. They all come home, and the elders, the ones that know who's gone, and they know the ones who to keep an eye at, because we just know them. We know the stories, we know the families, and eventually they will find their way home and they will have their story to tell.
Yeah. So Stolen Generations was an approach to assimilation, similar to what we experienced at boarding school here. Joe, what do you see as some of the impacts? Obviously this is a big trauma that happened to your people over there. What do you see as some of the impacts from the Stolen Generation periods?
Well, yeah, one thing, you probably see Camaraganja when we went out there, and we went out there and we took, and Sister Theta or another who went out there, and so we had a look at Camera, but a lot of the missions or reservations, they'd always, in the early years, they were always around 30 k's out of town, but it was a separation. You were put out on an allocated bit of land, and separation began with exactly like you said, assimilation. The purpose of the assimilation was firstly to remove the men. You remove the men of the family. They started to separate men, and then assimilate even by colour. And so what they did was remove a lot of the men and a lot of the people from the reservations to other reservations, like other Corondork and other places. I read there's some really, there was a real lot of movement of people. I'll give you an example. Part of my history was that I started to find out through my grandmother was that there was a man that was taken from Echuca. He was taken to Corondork. He had a name called John Terrick, but the name John Terrick was associated with Terrick Station. So he was given that name Terrick. Then he was taken to Corondork. When he got to Corondork, it's one of the most documented missions. Everything was documented. Where people come to, and this John Terrick, he ended up marrying a lady there. The lady had 2 children. She took on the name Terrick. They weren't his children because he never had any children. But the children took on the name Terrick. The complication being that he didn't come from Corondork, but he was taken to Corondork. And that's the line of my grandmother. So assimilation, happened because it took away language. But when it took away, the storytellers, just broke, it just broke a lot of the, they weren't allowed to talk language. They weren't allowed to sing the songs. and that was the assimilation. And with that assimilation, there came a lot of other things, and we suffer the impact today. There's a thing that's going on similar today all over the country where it's called stolen wages. Stolen wages that our people were working pretty much for nothing. They were grandmothers and that were working for station owners and mission managers and become maids and all these things for tuppence. Tuppence was a little, like 5 cents, and so the assimilation was all a part of that. And what came after that was not only the assimilation of the man and the stories and the songs, you're taking away identity.
Mm-hmm.
But then what they start to do too, then they start to remove children. And that was all a part of the assimilation. As Auntie Doreen said, took the children away. And then the song goes on, it says, broke our mothers' hearts because they're crying for their children. They were taken away. In a sense today, that through that assimilation, just to cut it short, is through that assimilation, a lot of things have come. The loss of identity, we see that people are not knowing their kinship stories, starting to find that out. I found out late in life, because I started to find out, and I started to talk to my grandmother about it, but I had to stop. She started threatening for the old people. She actually started threatening because she was in her 80s, and she started threatening for the old people. When we started to talk about that, wanting to know more about family but that assimilation back then, it still happens today. It happens today because of the facts back then. That's why through the schools we introducing language. Cultural identity is very important, not only through the organisations, we as acknowledgement to country, doing agreements with local government and council. We may, like Yorta Yorta, we never, we failed in our native title claim, but in Victoria we was able to get RAP status, which was that when government in Victoria build any road or do any bridges or do any work, and any of the work looking after country is done by this end, Yorta Yorta. So we're in a, but it still doesn't compensate what we lost because of the effects of the assimilation. And as Auntie Doreen says, at the very moment, even much as they've implemented black deaths in custody and all these things, it hasn't brought about a change. We still have the highest infant death in mortality rate. We still have the highest incarceration of men, women, and children. They're not just men and women, they're mothers and fathers. And the pressure it puts on grandmothers are looking after children, where they should be enjoying things and sharing things. They're worn out, looking after children. But we have the highest rate of children in out-of-home care. Today, out-of-home care. And it's huge. And, that's a little bit about, the effects of assimilation. The assimilation still happens. It still happens. And the assimilation happens, through Australia's constitution. It happened through your welfare service. We were once the advocates for Indigenous rights and for the services we need, but all of a sudden, we're no longer the advocates, we become the service provider, but still governed by department, still stipulated by rules to get funding, and it's the government being the mission managers about how you spend the money and what you do. Things are slowly starting to change. But at the moment, it hasn't changed what the crisis that we're in. We much as the coronavirus, what we confronted with then. The impact of all that is greater than the coronavirus. So, I'll leave it at that, but go on and get myself worked up.
My family had to assimilate to survive. When my family left, so I'm the southwest of Victoria, the Grampians, we call it Gary Word, and over a bit is Lake Conda. And my great-grandfather, Ebenezer Lovett, headed to Melbourne. And my Lovett family, they were in all the wars. They fought in every war. And they had to come down and sign up for the war because they had families to feed. So, we had to assimilate and walk off country. But we got country back when Eddie Mabo won the first victory, the native title, got back up the top end of Australia. That influenced my Auntie Georgina and the senior elders of the Gundji Jamara tribe. I'm Kirip Jamara of Gundji Jamara, and we got our land back down in the southwest. Next time you come to Melbourne, that's a destination. I've got to take you down there to show you the most beautifulest part of Victoria. And they come from all over the world to go and see Gary Word into the Grampians, and the stories, and the country comes alive there. The animals come out, and you just get in sync with the land straight away. It's so sacred. And and for us at the Gundji Jamara, we had our first impact with white man with the white whalers. So we had the Umarella War before colonisation, before Cook come, we were fighting the whalers. And that's why we're known as the Fighting Gundji Jamara. And even when the impact of colonisation here, we still fought for 70 years. And the Fighting Gundji Jamara still stands today. And we got recognition through our eel traps. They engineered through the lava rocks channels where the eels would swim in, and we'd set our eel nets between the rocks, and they swim into the net, and we pull them out at the other end. And we got World Heritage listing, and that's the first in Australia. And that happened last year or late the year before. I've shared some on Facebook about what's been, the making of the Gundji Jamara, the emu dreaming. We call it the emu dreaming down that way. And it's very strong, very powerful land. And very proud of my Gundji Jamara mob, the Lovett family and the other families around. Very, very proud to be Gundji Jamara.
Yeah. That is awesome. That is awesome. It's so striking and stunning that, the history and the impacts that you've shared are so similar to us. But it shouldn't be so striking and stunning. I mean, there's a reason why, we speak English and you speak English. We had the same oppressors, right? Or why they speak English in New Zealand, or why they speak English in Hawaii or Alaska or India, or the territories of Africa. It's the same oppressors and the same tactics that were used. So it shouldn't be so striking, but it is, because I think how we are today, we kind of like to distance ourselves from others. But that's why conversations like this is so important, because it brings us back and it brings us together, and that how we can support each other. But I turned over to Lavina, who has a question for you.
So, both of you know that a lot of the work that we do with the Native Wellness Institute is to create opportunities for healing and to do trauma-informed care. And that's a big key word over here, is trauma-informed care and healing. And so what are some of the programs that you guys have that are helping your people to start that healing journey from all of the trauma that has happened to your people through the stolen generations, the loss of language, the loss of songs, you know, like all of the pain and hurt that has happened to your people. What are some of the programs that you guys have developed to help your people?
Probably just, I think for us, and there's a lot of really good things happening. We could look at all that, but there's a lot of good things because a lot of communities are doing a lot of work. And I suppose, you know, that transition in the older generation, allowing young people to, you know, I heard it said, you know, heard it said that, you know, too many people go to the grave holding the baton, you know, still holding on to that, you know, not allow the younger generation to come through. And it's similar to Charles and the 20-something project. You know, you got all these young people saying, hey, we're here. You know, you don't have to be, we're not trying, you know, we're here to, you know, support the cause. We're here to learn that, you know, and there's a transition happening with that because we have elder status and to do that. But similar to over this, you know, over Native America, I see it, you know, having the experience to go over there, and it's wow. And we're doing that. One of the most powerful things that I'd seen when I was over the States was that Sister Lavina's community, Coeur d'Alene. But it was we were on the side of the lake, and Sister Lavina gets there with the drum, and she starts really. And I took a little video of it, but the impact that had, and even still today. But it was, you know, it was just like back in time. It was there. It was, and you know that moment. You know, and unfortunately, we're trying to capture that moment at home. How do we do that? You know, because you know, all our mob left reservation in 1957 to come into town. Some come here. The Yorta Yorta went into Shepherd, and some ended up in Melbourne. But we're trying to do that, and that's why that cultural exchange, to come over and, you know, just come over and share the culture. The ability we have now is not like the 70s. We can get on a plane and we're over there. Yeah. You know, we have the means, we can, the fact that we're talking now. But there's something that we need to learn, and native wellness is, you know, exactly like, you know, I just, that's what I want to say to our mob, eh? You know, there's a good, you know, we don't have to live in an invasion day. Because if we're living there, that's where we're going to take our youth. Yeah. That's where we're going to take the next generation. The next generation has to step into, you know, step into the future. You know, it's going to change. This year's changed completely. Completely the way that we view things. And, you know, changed. But it hasn't changed who we are. So, you know, that's what we got, you know, and that's the important. It's around identity. You know, a lot of people argue about the cultural things that matter. The thing that matter is family. Yes. The thing that matters is who you are and knowing where you come from. Like we call it cultural affirmation. It says that nobody can tell Robert Johnson who his mum is. You tell him that his mother's somebody else, you got a bit of a fight on, you know. And it's the same with any of us. You can't say who you are. You know, you argue, oh, Joe Day, you're not Yorta Yorta. You're Hispanic. No, senor. Yorta yorta, yorta yorta, wamba wamba. You know, if you go to Nicaragua, I'm yorta yorta. I'm not Colombian, nah. But you know, that's what it is. You know, and there's something about it, knowing who you are, being proud of it, and it's a lifestyle. It's, you know, it's the lifestyle has evolved. You know, people say, "Hey, blackfellas come from monkeys." I said, "Well, how come they're still monkeys?" None of that's true. I love the fact that what, you know, it was said down Sister Jolene about, you know, boys going off to, or whoever goes off to college, and not everything you learn in college is relevant to our identity and coming out and decolonizing, and we need to do that away from department, you know, and things like that. But that's why I love Native Wellness, because it teaches that, and it's a leader of that, you know, and the fact that we're talking today, but you know, and we just need to reinforce who we are, the things that matter, you know. You look at the coronavirus. What's the biggest impact that it has? Families home. Nobody can move. You got to stay home because you're in quarantine, you know. You know, all of a sudden, everybody's home, you know, lockdown. You're not allowed to go outside of 5K radius in Melbourne. Kids have got to be home. All of a sudden, you know, everybody's home. Everybody's home, and you know, it might be a family hasn't talked for months and months, you know. But yeah, that's the thing, you know. But yeah, there it is. You know, we just gotta grasp that.
Gracias, Senor Jose, mi amigo.
Yeah, but you know the beautiful thing, and I don't want to be talking too long, but the other thing, and our sister Lavana was saying, when I go over to the States, you know, and just thinking, everything I learned, all the TV shows, and all, they were out the window, you know. But just beautiful. Native America is so beautiful. Yeah, but like Sister Lavana said, you know, wow, you know, and one of the things I continue to do and say is acknowledge Native America wherever I go, you know, do the welcome. I just want to acknowledge the traditional owner. Well, they think, ooh, you know. But do an acknowledgement to country and a little bit learn, you know, and it's all about learning, and I just value that so much. And, you know, and yeah, no, it's just beautiful. I'll leave it at that.
Have you guys been following on Facebook about our flag? Have you seen the conversations about our flag? Like, even though a flag doesn't define us, but our flag connects us. And we're going through a bit of a challenge at the moment. Respected elder Harold Thomas, who painted the flag, created the artwork for the artwork, which grew on to represent us as a flag, now is leased out to Wham. It's an American company. Yeah, so might have to put it upside down. Yep, the red at the top. No, that way, Robert. Put the red at the top. Country in distress. Yeah, we're challenging for our flag back, because if an organisation wants to put it on our T-shirts or on our anything, it's a lot on our letterheads, we have to go through Wham, and we have to pay for the use of our flag now.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's a parliamentary inquiry to see if the government pays Harold Thomas out so we can have access to our flag for our purposes. And yeah, see where it goes. But there's talk of, do we have another flag? And I've even mentioned how the Native Americans, they have multiple flags. They have flags to represent their tribes. So, yeah, so just watch this, keep an eye out for that space, see what happens with our red, black, and yellow flag.
Yeah.
Harold Thomas. Harold Thomas created the flag, and he owned the copyright. So what he did is he sold the copyright to the flag to a group called Burapai or some name like that. But they, in the Asian market, they made Aboriginal artifacts. So you had these not Aboriginal artists doing artifacts on it, but he sold the copyright to this company.
Yeah, they were on the board of that company. So they've got a new company, and that's WHAM. I don't know where in America it is.
Mm.
If I ever went over there, I'd stand at the front with my red, black, and yellow, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hurtful. It's hurtful because our flag connected us. Even when I went overseas, to have something with red, black, and yellow opened up the doorway for conversations. You know, just the same as you guys. When you come here, we know who you are, and it opens up the doorways to conversations just by the way you're just addressing, or something that acknowledges your country and where you are from. So yeah, that's a little bit of something that we've been battling through.
But I just say, Harold Thomas,
Uncle Harold.
Uncle Harold, you designed the flag, but you didn't make the colours.
Yeah.
Created all colours. That's why there's a rainbow in the sky.
Yeah.
You know, and Harold Thomas, you don't own the colours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're talking about money, but you're gonna stop
all
me.
About money.
You know, he doesn't own it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He owns an idea, a concept, but that's it. It's not even, you
That's
know, and there was two different meanings to the flag. Harold Thomas was that the red for the Red Dust Plains, you know, up at the Northern Territory. The yellow for the sun, and you know the black for the people.
Well, what's interesting is that when I look at it, the first thing I think of is what we call the medicine wheel over here.
Yeah.
And where a lot of people use it and look to it and display it, but no one really takes ownership of it. You know, nobody does take ownership of it. It's in the medicine wheel is in some of our tribal flags, but it's just a representation of who we are, and we don't really see that as any one person or something to be capitalized on. It's a teaching, is what it is. And but yeah, in the couple minutes we got left, just want to share a couple questions. One of them, I know earlier you talked about assimilation, and it's something that happens similar here, where if you were a lighter skin over here, you know, if you're a lighter skin Indigenous person, you had the possibility of being adopted into a white family.
Yeah.
It had an impact of that, where today one of our forms of what we call lateral violence toward each other is how we treat each other toward the color of our skin, just within Indigenous people. So one of the questions was asking about the Aboriginal communities. Is that something that you see over there as well?
Those.
Oh, geez. Yeah, in our community, you know, so we've got even the lighter skins. My, you know, I assimilated. My children's fathers, my daughter's fathers are white Australians, and they grow up learning from our elders here, you know, like even I teach my daughters to look after the real dark-skinned ones because you have an advantage over the real dark ones, whether it's walking into a shop or into Centrelink to get their payments or signing a form. You know, the assimilation. It's opened up a can of worms too. You know, we have the ones that are coming in that are trying to find their connections, and they say they're Aboriginal because we have an Aboriginality form. Do you have quantum blood testing?
Mhm.
Ours is done by an Aboriginality form where elders have got they'll know that family that you come from. That's, you know, the purpose of one of the purposes of our elders. You know, they know who's who in the zoo. They know who left and who's got to come back. I just got stuck on that one. I just really got stuck. But I teach my daughters, you know, to care for the dark-skinned ones. Not that they're any better or any worse. We're all the same here. You identify as Aboriginal. But there's just some extra care that needs to be taken. You know?
Well, we went years ago. There was a basketball tournament on, and because I used to take the kids and at the basketball and tournaments, and they're in Tasmania. I don't know if you know the history of Tasmania. It's a terrible history. We talk about assimilation. This wasn't assimilation. This was annihilation.
Yeah.
We're all of Tasmania and pretty much, really terrible. There's a written history of the last full-blooded Aboriginal woman by the name of Truganini. So it's a beautiful story, but a tragic story. Yeah. And at this basketball tournament, there was a side playing, and they were from Tasmania, and the people from Tasmania called the Palawa people. And even our own kids, and these kids were playing, they're all fair, white. And even our own kids was, what are these white fellas? What are these Gabba, Gabba meaning white person. But they didn't know. And as Dawes say now, that was, which wasn't the result of assimilation, that was annihilation. They was pretty much forced off cliffs. They were, and some of the most beautiful people come from Tasmania, and some of them, like Michael Mansell, are the most influential people that, the early years of seeking land rights and equal rights from Tasmania. And a beautiful family. But what we have today is, aside from the simile, is the removal of children, because we got an epidemic of ice. Ice doesn't discriminate against women or men, the rich or the poor. It doesn't discriminate against gender. But what it does, and I believe the sole purpose is to destroy families.
Yeah.
And in destroying those families, not only the children when they get removed, but you can imagine, through a mixed marriage, or if the child, and that comes into question. We have to have Aboriginality forms now. There's questions that, people's identity, but if you've been removed or separated, it's a big thing at the moment. But it's a tragic, it's a big thing. It's tragic more than anything. And you got to be careful how you judge people by the color of their skin.
Yeah.
My family, I similarly hearing what Dawes before, when my mother, I lost my father, I was only 6, but he left 6 children. And he died at 33, but my mother, and we were already separated from my father, and he died at 33. And my mother, back then, a lot different to now, that all the support that you have, you didn't have it.
Yeah.
You know, gee. And, but she had to, see, she didn't marry, but she hooked up to a drover meaning somebody that moved cattle and sheep to help support the family. So I got brothers and sisters, you know. I don't look any different than myself. But the difficulty I had to grow up, not only, having a black brother, but all of a sudden have a different name. But yet they still went to school through that stigma. And even today I think, how could they go to the whole, how can the school put them through and they come out and can't read and write?
Mm.
Yeah. But in the end, yeah. But we have a lot, trying to find identity.
Yeah.
And but I'll leave it at that. And yeah, it's.
Over here, we're called Indian, and we understand that. We still call each other Indian and everything, but we know it's not our terminology. It's something that's given to us. How we use it toward each other is just kind of, oh yeah, Indian from this, or that's Indian way, or whatever. But what I notice, when we go over to Australia, the terminology is black fella, right? And that we had to get used to that at first, and what that meant, and how I identified it is, okay, that's the same way that we would use Indian over here. It's not our terminology, but it's so much used, what it means. So when you see people introduce themselves and you see someone with, really light hair and fair skin, say, and woman say, yeah, I'm a black fella from, this territory, it took some use to get used to, but at the same time, because they're focusing on the words, right? But again, it's just slang. It's slang that was used for that time.
Yeah.
How about this? What does in the little bit of time we got left, and Levine needs your help, defining terminology. I'm gonna throw out some words that I heard either spoken today, or maybe I heard when we've heard when we were over there. These are just slang words, and just give us a little quick description of how you use that word, or use it in a sentence, okay? Because these are words we might even know, but maybe not use it like you. So how about use this in a sentence? Deadly.
Yeah, it's cool and deadly. It's great. It's the best. It's awesome.
What about mob?
Oh, that's all of us. I've got a big mob. Got to get them up soon. Got to do a school run soon. So I've got a mob here. They're in isolation with me. The mob wouldn't go home. They stayed in isolation with me because I got internet.
I seen a quote the other day, and I put it up on Facebook. I took a photo of, because I got a lot of birds that come in, and 4 of them sat up on the trough to drink and eat. And it says, 4's a party, 5's a mob.
Levina, you got a term?
I can't think of any right now. Those are 2 of the big ones though. But even boot, like when I was there, I remember, people saying, "Oh, just put it in the boot," and I was like, "Put it in the what?" And that's the terminology for trunk.
In the boot.
Oh, in the boot. Yeah. And then like I would say like Brother Joe, I'm gonna ring you tomorrow or the next day, or like there were just little words like that were just really different. And yeah, that's awesome though.
What about the gubba? The gubba man.
Government. The government. Because blackfellas back in them days couldn't pronounce government with a V. So it came out government. And gubba is one of our adopted slangs.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
the white fellas have got to wear that. They just got to wear it.
You just got to wear the gubba now, huh?
Yeah.
But Melbourne has its big, it's big festival for the year, and they got the mob to name it, and they named it Moomba. But what they didn't know, Moomba means behind. So, it's the Behind Festival.
Uncle Bill owners. Yep. Yeah.
No. See, that's what mum means. Mum means your backside.
Mm.
So they named it the Backside Festival. So, yeah.
Mumba.
How come you didn't take us there, Joe?
Right?
How come you didn't take us to the Backside Festival when we were there? Well, hey, this has been really awesome. Just to connect, just to see you guys again. And you know us, we always go hours just sharing stories and talking. I know Will was on here. I know Theta was on here, just sharing their blessings and their laughter with both of you. And just from Native Wellness, we just want to thank you again for being such, not only for today, but all the times that we've connected and taken such good care of us when we went there. And you've been truly a blessing in our lives, and we want to thank you for that. And for everyone that's watching today, again, our guest today, Doreen Lovett, Joe Day, Joe Day and Doreen are both active on Facebook if you're looking for a new friend, just to see the type of work they do over there and what they go through. Look them up, and we're so proud of everything that you do. And I just want to, again, thank you for being here today. And I want to thank all of you. I think it's the collective, Indian Collective, that is sponsoring this event today. But again, we just want to thank you all for being here and watching with us, and learned a lot. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and wonderful rest of the week celebrating Indigenous people from all over. Mado.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
girls.
you for
Thank
having
you,
us.
Doreen.
Miss
Mwah.
yous all.
Love
It
you.
was
Miss
great.
you too.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.